I'm going to go ahead and get started. Like I had mentioned several weeks ago when this was originally planned, we're just going to kind of jump in so that way we get the most time out of this that we can instead of doing some other stuff. And then next Sunday we'll double down on our prayer request time and maybe even do an extra song or two. So for those of you who missed out this week, Debbie's not here, so I don't think anybody's going to be that mad that we're not doing music. Yeah. I'm just saying, you'll be all right. So anyway, so this is a friend of mine, Katylyn, I've been telling you guys about, and her and I met randomly in an intro to theater class, as we were both really into theater. I was told it was a class you can't go to Baldwin Wallace without taking this class with this professor, and it was amazing, and you have to have this. And so I said, well, my last semester I needed an easy A. Why not take intro to theater? And I got a B-. So, but in that,
I got an A.
But in that class, Katylyn and I met, and we actually got paired together to act a scene together. And most of our time rehearsing turned into just sitting and talking about our faith and God and Scripture, and kind of where she was at that time, kind of going through a bad situation at a church. I kind of vaguely remembered that. And then I think we kind of moved on. And I think within a year or so, we kind of reconnected at that point. She actually came here and met with me once or twice, I think. Yeah. And then kind of drifted and stayed connected on Facebook. And so I'd see some stuff that she had posted. And over the last year or so, I just kind of saw some videos that she posted. And I said, I think something happened. And so I kind of reached out to her over the summer, and we had some brief conversations via text, and then she posted a video sometime around the New Year. Mm-hmm. And I said, I think you need to come and share your story at our church. And so she said, I would love to. So it's been almost a year and a half since you've been in the church. Yes. So this is a big deal. And so we picked a date, and then she got sick, and then we picked another date, and then it was all weekend. Every time I felt anything in my stomach, I'm like, no! Because it's going around, and so I'm like, please don't let me get sick this weekend, because that's my always fear. Anytime I have something that's planned, I'm going to get sick. I just know it, and I never do. I'm always afraid I'm going to. So anyway, so here we are, and this is Katylyn. She's going to kind of tell her story.
Hi, thanks. Hi. Yes, as Jim pointed out, I haven't been in a church for a year and a half, so this is, I'm humbled and thankful to be here, especially you guys are so friendly and welcoming, and I really appreciate that. This is very healing for me because my last experiences were traumatic and very disheartening, and so also, before I begin, over here at this table are my lovely ladies, and I would not be where I am today without the support of beautiful family and friends who looked beyond what I was going through and saw me for me. And I think that's really what I've discovered over the past year and a half is not only, I think we talked about this, but not only is it knowing God and knowing who He is, but letting Him know me and not feeling ashamed or terrified or judged, and just really sitting with the Lord and saying, here's the good, the bad, the ugly. I can't do it today. I'm broken today. What's going on? And initially, when I first left the thing that I was a part of, there was a lot of shame. I didn't want Him to look at me because I thought there was a list of, you have to fix this, 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 and this that I was going to get when I let Him look at me. And every time I would stop and just say, what's going on? I could hear Holy Spirit say to me, I'm right here. And that has been, I don't have any pivotal revelations. I don't have notebooks of study of Bible verses and this and that. The one thing that I know for sure is that when I looked at Him, it didn't matter how long in between those times, He said, I'm right here. And to know truly unconditional love this past year and a half, I knew I was going to cry, but it has been revolutionary, and I thought revolution would come from how good I could be or how much I could do. And it's not that. It's just I am who he created me to be, and he is so good, and I'm so thankful for him. And it's really just what I've discovered this past year and a half. And just to preface, I'm sure some of you are like, what the heck happened to get you to this point? Sorry, I was being a little vague. I'm also a little nervous. I don't know any of you people, so I'm just trying to feel out the room. But I grew up in the church. I grew up from the time I was 5. Mommy and Daddy were taking me to church, and I had a really strong church community growing up. And, we did the VBS and the church camps, and, I was in the youth group, and I really prided myself on just being a Jesus lover. It was a little rough at first. I was that girl that when people were cussing, I'm like, you're going to go to hell. You're going to hell. So I had to tone that down. But it was good, and it was lovely, and I grew up in this church, and I had a great community, and it was wonderful. And as soon as I graduated, when you are 18 years old, you are like, I know everything. I'm going to take on the world. And that's what I thought I was doing. And I fell flat on my face, and that was fantastic. So I went to California, and when I came back, that's when I was like, okay, got to figure life out. I had always been a perfectionist. I don't know if anybody has ever struggled with that, but I was a perfectionist. So to have to come back from California, admit that I couldn't make it, take a semester off from college, be a townie, I felt like a loser. And that really messed with me. So I had gone back to my childhood church, and there were a lot of organizational changes. And in that change, a new youth pastor had come in, and that was totally fine, but a lot of structural changes. And there were events that happened that were not okay. And this is where I got this idea of this militant God, to the point where if I wasn't reading my Bible every day, if I wasn't posting Bible verses on Facebook, if I wasn't meeting this checklist of existing, then I wasn't a good Christian. And so I started to get really mad because I was failing every day. How can you meet this checklist every day? It's impossible. And I'm already mad at myself for failing in California and taking a semester. So I got really mad, and I eventually, after a situation had happened, was like, you know what? Screw this. Screw the church. Screw God. Screw all of it. Sorry for my rough language, but let's be honest, right? That's where I was. I was mad. And so I had met Jim during the point where I was like, forget all of this. Okay, I'm done. And so I'm talking to Jim, and, Jim believes in God, and I'm like, no, all of it, this is not true. Like, I don't believe in anything. Like, this is all messed up, yada, yada. Jim, as you know, just listens and is very kind and like, oh, okay, sure, right, if you ever want to talk, like, I'm here, it's great. So I went out on my journey. I met my best friend, Maria, during that time, and thank God for her. It was amazing. Through all of my challenges, it's so beautiful how God just brings that person along that you didn't know that you needed, and you needed. And I went through a really rough time just denouncing faith and denouncing all of what I had believed in for my entire life. And so, again, I fell flat on my face, and I started to have multiple panic attacks every day, and I didn't know what to do. So I had reached out to that former leader because I didn't know where else to go. And at that moment, that former leader was very accepting and very loving and welcomed me right back in without any judgment. I started talking to Jim because I felt like, I would describe it to my mom, I felt like there were demons in my head pulling strings. I felt like there was a demonic force keeping me from believing in God. I was really going through it. A lot of anxiety, a lot of panic. I'm rambling. Okay. Am I fine? We're good? We're keeping up? Okay. I'm trying to get it all in here. So.
They're used to me, so this is a pleasure.
Okay. All right. So No, I lost my train of thought. I'm a teacher as well, so I'm so used to like, okay, class. Anyways, so I'm accepted back in. I'm talking to Jim. I'm trying to rediscover who is this God, right? Show me. Somebody show me. And at that point, I wanted someone to tell me. I wanted a person to fix me. I wanted an organization to make me feel safe. I needed it. I needed someone to rescue me. And so I let people rescue me. And sometimes there are people who come along that, God will use to help us. But people don't save us. And that's where things started getting a little haywire. And I let these people save me. I was in such a vulnerable, emotional, spiritual, psychological state that when they started making minor changes, it was okay because they were rescuing me. And those changes happened very slowly over the years. I was a part of the organization for 12 years. And they would start out with, don't wear this type of clothing, and don't say these type of things, and your biological family isn't in line with our kingdom family, so separate from them because they don't want what the kingdom wants. And, those friends that you had, they're not so... I got isolated, and in an abrupt term, kind of indoctrinated to believe that these people were my saviors. And I was willing to give up everything to let them save me, to the point where they're telling me what city I can live in, when I could buy a car, how much money I should be giving, where I could buy a house, to the point where now it's 2018, who am I allowed to marry? And they had a system called the room system, where they controlled every step of the marriage process as well. This is when you can talk. This is what you can talk about. You have to pray about this. You have to do this and that. I was with this man in 2018. We went on our first date. It had to be in public. In 2018, we had our first kiss. Also had to be in public. In 2019, February 2019. I was engaged May 2019 and married August 2019. In August, I had said, I don't want this. This doesn't feel right. I'm feeling very anxious. And I was told that I only feel anxious because it's the glory of God and it's the unknown and I need to go through with it. And so I did. The man that I married was not a good man. There were a lot of things that happened behind closed doors. A lot of things. And what you're imagining is probably true. So it happened behind closed doors, and I got to the point where I was so beaten down and so broken. And I'm going to these people who saved me, and I'm telling them snippets of what's going on. And I was the problem because I was instigating. And I didn't submit. And I'm supposed to humble myself to my husband. So I stayed. And I knew there was no way out. I couldn't leave this organization. They had stripped me down and made me to who they wanted me to be. I was with this man. He had 2 beautiful children whom I really did love, and I was stuck. So in January of 2022, it got to a point where I told the Lord, I said, there's 2 ways out of this. One is I leave, which is never going to happen. Or 2 is I kill myself. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I got down to 94 pounds. I was so sick. I was so depressed. And I brought some of my journals. I was journaling every single day, and when I look back at those now, my heart breaks for that girl that I was. I hated myself. Everything was my fault. It's because I wasn't submitted enough. I wasn't in enough alignment. I didn't pray enough. I didn't love God enough. I wasn't serving enough. I was so despicable. I was so broken. It was my fault that all of these things were happening. God, why can't you just save me? Like, why am I so broken and so bad? And so, by the grace of God, the abuser never leaves. This is just like fact. The abuser never leaves. The Lord rescued me through a divorce. He rescued me. And I know that it says in the Bible, divorce is, God hates divorce because it shows this, whatever, X, Y, and Z. The Lord rescued me because had I not been divorced, I might not be here right now. And that man came to me and said, I'm done. What? He said, I'm done. I'm like, okay. So, it's fine. All right, fine. Yeah. And he's like, you can stay in the house. I'm like, right, because I bought the house. And he's like, right. And, he was done. Okay. I stayed in the organization a couple months after the divorce, but when they started celebrating the abuser and they started publicly embarrassing me, I sat down on my couch and I was talking to Holy Spirit and I said, Lord, if a battered woman came to me and said, is this a safe organization for me to go to? Would I say yes? And my answer was, beep, no. And I said, so what am I doing here? And the mindset that I could never leave, it was like Holy Spirit just in that moment. And I was like, I can walk away. And my catchphrase became, the only step you can take is the one you're taking right now. I couldn't look forward to what was going to happen in the future because I was taught that if you walk away from that, you're out of alignment, your life will be cursed, your finances will fail, you'll start to lose people, your health will fail. So I had to say, you know what? I don't know if that's true or not, but I have to take a step. And I was terrified. Mama knows. I was terrified. Like, this is it. Like, I don't know what's on the other side of this, but I have to try. And so I walked away. And I tried to reconcile. There was no chance at reconciliation because, again, they get to shape the narrative, which is fine. I've been able to walk away in peace, and I can sit here and say, I am so proud of the woman that I have become today. Thank you. I am so proud because for the first time in my life, now it's not you saving me, this organization saving me, you telling me this and that. I know him, and he knows me. And it's true, and it's real, and there are days when things really suck, but I can look up and say, you're right there. You know me. Okay. The only step we can take is the one we're taking right now. So what does that one step look like? I have made amends with my ex-husband. I have no ill will towards him. I tried to reconcile with the organization. It's not going to happen. And I honestly, at this point, have a righteous anger towards organizations as such. And it's not the only one. This is happening across the world. When you use God's name to justify your own agenda, when you use God's name to punish and harass people. The Bible says God is love. Love is patient. Love is kind. It keeps no records of wrong. Why would God send us Jesus if he was going to hold every little wrong against us? We can't have a checklist that keeps us caged in isolation of fear of being hated by this God who loves us so much. And I'm not here to say, like, you know what, live like a heathen, do whatever you want, everything's fine. but I trust you, and this is a thing too. This is my favorite Bible verse. Can I read a little verse for you?
No.
Oh,
This is non-Bible church.
this is not Bible church.
Make sure it's a King James version.
Oh, Lord!
We are a no. You heard of King James only churches?
Yes.
We are a no King James.
Okay, good.
No, that's it.
Okay, if it makes you religiously feel better, you can look it up on your own. All right, so I despise religion. I don't know if you've can hear that, but so the Passion Translation. Has anybody heard of that one? Okay, revolutionary, let me tell you. So this is Psalms 139:5 in the Passion Translation, and this has been like my anchor verse. It says, "You've gone into my future to prepare the way, and in kindness you follow behind me to spare me from the harm of my past. With your hand of love upon my life, you impart a blessing to me." This shifted everything for me, because you know how the whole narrative is like, it's really hard not to like walk right. Here, I'm gonna demonstrate. You know, the whole narrative is like God is here and we're just, following along, right? Like, okay, thank you. I love this verse because it says that He goes and clears the path. So He has cleared all the debris, all the brush, all the briars. He has cleared the path. This is beautiful. In kindness, He's actually following behind me to protect me from the harm of my past. That means Jesus trusts me. He doesn't think I'm some stupid little child, like, all right, come on, you're so dumb, you'll never figure this out, right? Instead, He's cleared the way. I'm up here knowing that He is behind me. And when you, have you ever been in like a haunted house? I don't like haunted houses, but teenage years, okay? You always wanted to be the person in the front because you could see what was coming at you. You always wanted somebody behind you because you can't see what's behind you. So you feel safer having someone behind you watching your back. So I get to walk this path knowing who's behind me, watching my back. There's nothing that can come after me because He's there. And He trusts me to follow this path. And there's some times where I get a little off kilter and maybe, I get in a little bramble bush and whatever. But He's like, hey, come on, right here. Here's the path. And I've been talking about this journey just with family and friends and stuff, and I've described it as I'm not stuck in the briar bush anymore. I'm not stuck in the hatred and the unforgiveness and whatever. But I was in the briar bush, and as I'm walking along, I still have to pull some of these things out so that the journey is comfortable and I can be free. So yeah, there are some things from my past that I still have to deal with. And I do that in therapy with my beautiful therapist, and I think everyone should have a therapist because
Amen.
It's 2024 and things are crazy. So I love therapy, and I'm here to break the stigma of mental health. So, which also I thought was a curse if you had any mental health issues. I thought you had demons, and so glad that's been debunked. But yes, I'm walking through this, and I feel just light and, I don't know, free. And I think that's what led me here today. And that's kind of just the overall gist of my story. Thank you for listening. So, thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like that was crazy. Did I rabbit trail? Was that too much? Okay, I'm feeling a little insecure.
I thought it was perfect.
Okay.
I just we were kind of joking when we were on the phone a couple weeks ago. This is basically like a 6-part Netflix documentary series that we have to do in like an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Yes.
So like that's what I'm trying to because the biggest thing that sticks out, and so like I said, so having Katylyn here is twofold, right? It was, I talk about a lot of things that people in this church have never experienced, and so there's sometimes where people push back, like why are you talking about this stuff? Mm-hmm. And this is why. Like, and then obviously the other part was for her to come and have a place to heal where she can be safe and tell her story. So one of the things that I have been adamantly opposed to is the teaching of total depravity. This idea, this tulip, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the tulip, right? But the T, the first point in Calvin's tulip is total depravity. That all of us are born sinners, and we're completely and totally depraved, and nothing good can come from us. That teaching is what leads to her experience. And it is one of the most dangerous things the Christian church has ever taught. Instead, we can't continue to teach total depravity. We have to teach total perfection. Because the fact of the matter is that we're told, Katylyn, you were created in God's image. You were perfectly crafted in your mother's womb. You were intricately woven. You were fearfully and wonderfully made to be a terrible sinner who's going to burn in hell for all of eternity simply because you exist.
Yes.
And we wonder why we have generations of kids, because once again, her story is not unfamiliar, right? And we think like, oh my God, like I don't understand how anybody could fall for that. Well, if you grow up in the church and you're taught these things and you go through some experiences and you come across some people who don't have your best intention, you're easy to be preyed upon. And so that's why, like, it's hard for me to just hear these stories and not, like, this is why I talk about the things I talk about. You know what I mean? Because I don't want my daughter to end up in a situation, in a high-controlled environment like that. I don't want my niece or nephew, like, I don't want people that I know or love to have to go through something like that. And the Christian church has created a theological system that creates that type of environment. And that's why we have to recognize that who God really is. And who is God, right? God is love. And so that was like my thing is like, oh my gosh, like this idea of like total, like her whole mindset through her story was that she's just totally depraved. And she can't do it. She's going to fail. The shame and the guilt and all that stuff. And it's just not biblical. It's not loving. It's not graceful. It's not murder. It's nothing that we say God is. And so that's just for me, like, you just have to just realize that, like, I remember, so the biggest argument I ever got with my daughter was when she was in second grade, and I told her she was perfect, because I told her she's perfect all the time, because she is perfect. And she said, no, Dad, Mrs. Morgan, whatever her teacher's name was, she said that nobody's perfect. And I said, well, I understand, but I just want to let you know, your teachers lied to you. And everybody in your world is going to lie to you. Because they've been convinced that nobody's perfect. And I'm here to tell you, everybody's perfect. Right? That beautiful psalm that you talk about, for me, it's so important because God clears the path ahead of you, so you don't got to worry about it. Anxiety is all about what's going to happen, right? And then we have all this trauma from our past that flares up the anxiety about what's going to happen again. And so that, for me, that passage is all about just being present, because whatever's going to happen is what's going to happen anyway. You know what I mean? So this idea that, like, I think I was joking about this last week. We talked about how terrible the world is, and we're like, oh, we lose our faith, we lose our hope. It's like, you don't think God's got a plan? You don't think this is part of God's plan? Maybe things are supposed to be the way that they are? Maybe God's in control. Maybe God has a plan. And so, yeah, so that was just my snippet. But you literally just wrote like 5 sermons for me. So, like, the rest of the year, because that's about how much I preach a year. The rest of the year, I'm good. But
can I jump in really? I'm sorry, now
Sure,
I want to
go.
talk.
Yes.
So, this is something that I really figured out during that whole journey, that 12-year chaos. There were attributes of God that I really had to lean into. He's compassionate, He is merciful, He is kind, because when you're suffering at the hands of people and situations, all you can look at is like, okay, you're kind, you're good, you're merciful, like, that's what I need. And the other, I think 3 weeks ago in my therapy session, my counselor had brought up the attributes of God, and I immediately was like, I don't want to look at them. I don't want to know. And she's like, well, let's just, let's maybe see if something sticks out to you. There was something about it that just really, like, I clammed up. I got scared, right? Knowing him, I got scared. And on the one column it said, God is immutable, He is omniscient, He is omnipresent, He's glorious, He's holy, and those stuck out to me and struck me. Because yes, I love that He's compassionate and merciful, but knowing that, like, He is holy. He is so holy. Everything works together to praise Him. So why would I let this minute little corrupt thing, shake me? Because I've got trees clapping their hands to praise Him. I've got flowers singing songs to worship Him. Like, everything that exists is for His glory. And then I started thinking about me, like, my cells and my blood and my bones, like, just thinking about the human body will blow your mind because it all works together in this perfect function. I was like, you even designed us so complexly that, like, we are glory. We get to be holy because we are in you. And just that whole revelation of just wheels turning.
Well, no. So when you come across people like Katylyn's gone through her experiences, there's certain things that will trigger them, right? So, like, a friend of mine, accountability, like, you do not say accountability in front of them. It's like a trigger word,
Yeah.
right? And so I didn't know one of her trigger words was perichoresis. And so we were talking on the phone a few weeks ago. She said something. We were talking kind of similar lines. I'm like, oh, that's perichoresis. And she's like, wait, what did you just say? And I was like, well, it's perichoresis. That's great. She's like, no, and she explained it. And so I had to explain to her, like, because the organization she was a part of talked about it, and they talked about the circle dance, and the way she described how they described it is not how I understand it at all. So I just said, hey, I just want to warn you, before you show up, we have the perichoresis symbol on our painted on our wall. It's a big part of who we are. And so as she was talking there, like, the cells and how everything is perfectly woven together and how these all things move, like, that is the definition of perichoresis. It's the movement of, and that's one of the things I'll say, God isn't a being, God is being. God is the movement that exists between all of us. And, William Paul Young's book, The Shack, he has a beautiful chapter in there about as God is a verb, which means God is movement. God is, because what is love? Love isn't stagnant. Love doesn't sit on a shelf. Love doesn't lord over us. Love moves through us and around us and in us, and you know what I mean? And God is love. So I'm not saying that God isn't. There might be some being sitting on some throne somewhere. I'm not saying that that's not true, but also is God is the movement. So that's beautiful. So you go back and you get back into this because I remember the people that were involved. I remember you had such a terrible taste in your mouth about them, and like they were the enemy, and they were like the focus of your anger at that time. And so I talked to you like a year later, and you're like, oh my gosh, no, they're so lovely and they're great, and it wasn't them, it was the other organization that they were part of at that time, and that made them be that way. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty radical shift. And so my first question is, were both of those organizations connected that they were a part of? Like the first one that you left when you were like in high school, and then the next one that they started, were they a part of the same umbrella organization?
No, so this should have been a red flag. Again, when you're having 6 panic attacks a day, you'll reach out to any anchor. So they were, the first organization was like a big, like national organization. It was a specific denomination, that has the offices and whatever. And so they had been relocated to my childhood church. During my time away in college, when I was out doing whatever, they had left that organization because they had the idea that they were against religion and they wanted a true kingdom family and they wanted, just Holy Spirit to have His way. And so they had left the religious structure and they had started their own thing. in people's houses. It started in a house, and then they were able to rent out a space, and so they were not connected to anything except whatever they created. So there was no organizational attachment until a couple years later, when it basically became its own denomination in itself. So to break away from domination, they actually became their own denomination.
Well, domination is right.
Domination.
That wasn't a slip. So the 12 years, because I remember, like I said, as you guys know, I'm not a big Facebook person, but for whatever reason, either the Facebook algorithm or God has always had her stuff pop up at random points in time. I don't like it, I don't comment on it, I don't interact with it. So why? Most people in the church's stuff doesn't show up when I scroll through. I just see random ads because I don't really engage with stuff, right? And none of them are targeted ads because Facebook doesn't know me. Facebook still doesn't even know I have kids. My daughter's 11. And so, but these things would just pop up, and so there's popping up these worship services, and there's dancing, and she was singing, and oh, that's pretty interesting. I remember I was listening to a few of the messages, and well, it's not really my cup of tea, but I get it, I get it, and then it just seemed like a good, little wholesome church, and a lot of energy, and a lot of vibrance there, and and then all of a sudden it was then I would see pictures of she's getting married, and well, okay, we get a neck tattoo, and something like that. I'm not what I thought, but okay, I guess things change, I guess, and then all of a sudden she's single. I'm what happened there? Right? So, in the whole 12 years, where was the first time you're I don't know about this?
So, and this is what was really hard for me, because I can sit here today and say I genuinely still love those people. And it was hard because I could see the progression throughout the years where it really did. It always starts this way. Something starts out really pure, right, with the best intentions, and then things just start to happen that just chip away at it. And I could watch the progression, and so in the beginning it was amazing to have a place where you could just grab a microphone and sing the song of the Lord and just dance and be free. It truly was people just loving Jesus and trying to serve each other in the community, and it truly was that. And then this whole idea of that apostolic came in, and an apostle got introduced, and we got connected into these streams, and then all this language started changing, and I think I really started to notice it in 2015. A couple people had left, and it became very taboo. You don't talk to the people who left because they're rebellious and out of order, and you don't want to be connected to that and in the same sense. And I have such a big heart, I just want to love everybody, so I couldn't really get on board with that. But then I felt like I was hiding a dirty little secret by talking to these people, and and then somebody who was very dear to me in that organization, she was a legitimate mom to me. She had sat down with me, just broken, crying, and she's I have to leave. And I'm you can't, you're my safe space. You can't leave. You're the one that if I know you're here, then I know that this is okay. And if you leave, then is this okay? And after she left, I really struggled with it because I'm not supposed to talk to her. And this woman was this beautiful, red-headed, lovely flower child, just loved the Lord, just loved Jesus. And when she left, I'm what? She's my safe space. If she's not here, then is this really safe? And so I really started questioning it, and it started getting more demanding and commanding. I'd say around this time I had graduated from college. I wanted to take a job in the inner city, and I was told I can't do that. And, like, I wanted to go to certain places. I wanted to travel, but I couldn't miss church service, so I couldn't travel. I couldn't take days off, and I started getting really frustrated because I'm like, okay, I understand, let's come together and celebrate, but like now there are things in my heart that I know the Lord has put in there, and you're telling me that they're wrong, or I can't do them, or what have you, X, Y, and Z. And so I'd say probably around 2016, 17, I really started like questioning things. Like, I'm getting mad now. Of course I'm going to stay because stay, right? And I loved the people. I genuinely loved the people. I would go on vacation with them, and my life revolved around these people. But I started getting really mad because I'm like, there are still dreams and desires that I have, and I'm being told no, or they're bad, and I can't. And then when the marriage came into the picture, and I'm trying to tell them, like, you guys, this is what's going on, and I'm being told that I'm the problem, I was like, this isn't okay. But I really struggled because still to this day, I love those people, and I watched what happened to them as the apostolic got involved. A lot of competition to gain the apostles' love and affection was the driving motivation. So if our church is better than a brother church, then the apostle might love us more. And so much of it came from such a place of abandonment and rejection and hurt. And it was really hard for me because I could see that. And I prayed so fervently for these leaders, like, you are so broken, you are so hurt. And so much of what you do to, like, control and micromanage is to keep the people that you love with you. You don't want to lose any more people. You've lost people that you love, and that's why you are gripping so tightly, because you just don't want to lose people.
So one of the common themes for people who kind of escape this type of organization is they completely abandon the faith in God. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that was really striking to me about some of the videos you would post, is that it didn't seem like it really challenged your faith in God or your faith in Jesus. And so how did you maintain that through all of this? Because it's, like I said, it's so easy to like just throw the whole thing out.
Yeah. Well, I did that in college, and it didn't work out for me. So when I had walked away, I did it totally differently this time. I didn't walk away with a big screw you. I didn't walk away with I'm going to just burn everything down. I walked away with love. And I walked away knowing, okay, I love you people, even though I don't agree, and there's a lot of really harmful things going on. And I know that I love the Lord because I have encountered Him, and He is the only one giving me strength to walk away right now. And I reached out, and I talked, and I let people love me through the process of leaving. And this is the one thing, if anybody takes anything away from today, please tell the truth. Just be honest with the people you love, with God, with whomever. It is so liberating to just tell the truth. It really is. The truth really does set you free. We're so afraid to tell the truth because of judgment, shame, whatever. I told the truth. I told them what I was struggling with, and I reached out, and there was prayer, and there was encouragement, and there was love and support. And no, I haven't been in a church for a year and a half, but I had church last night with Maria. I had church the other night on the phone with Angie. I have church with my mom. I have church with my therapist. Like, we had church on the phone a couple weekends ago. And to have those connections with people where I could just be myself, lay it all out, and know that they were loving me and supporting me, I saw God through those people. And that allowed me to maintain my faith.
So kind of to answer the next question, how does that look like moving forward
Like from this point today?
for you? Yeah, like how does that continue to grow and to kind of build that relationship with God and faith in Jesus and all of that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, the past year and a half, I really struggled with the checklist and laying it down. So even on the drive here, I went through the religious red tape. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't pray for 30 minutes this morning. And the Holy Spirit was like, don't do that. Like, don't do that. I was like, okay. And then his famous phrase, I'm right here. That's literally, if there's one thing that he ever says to me, it's, I'm right here. And that's the biggest thing. And I think just still going to therapy and helping, having that insight to say, like, this is that red tape that's keeping me from really knowing him and him really knowing me. And just working through that and realizing, okay, this is something that my brain was trained to think, but my spirit wants something more. So just retraining my brain, in a sense, and continuing with therapy, continuing with building connections and not hiding and not being afraid. And honestly, thank you for listening today, because every time I tell my story, and I've been afraid to tell it. I mean, can you see why? There's some things back there, and I still feel like I have to protect certain people. I still feel like that, I don't know, weight almost, like I have to protect them and I don't want to expose anybody and whatever. But every time I tell my story, I feel like I get a piece of my heart back. It feels really healing, and I really thank you for just giving me a space to listen, because it gets easier every time I talk about it. So,
One of my favorite Richard Rohr quotes from a book called Adam's Return says, moralisms keep us making lists for God instead of making love for God. And it just, I remember I read that
that's
in
amazing.
2013, and just like, oh, I can't, and that's where, like, I will always say, like, and I tease us, like, as a church, like, there's just a lot of things that go on in other churches that never been exposed here because we're such a perfect church. Like, we're just perfect here. Like, do everything right. You know what I mean? And, like, even, like, my father-in-law who was here before me, who was a lot more traditional, but he wasn't a high control. Like, he wasn't, you know what I mean? So, like, the people who've been been a part of this church for a long time have never really experienced that kind of legalism, that kind of, you know what I mean, stuff that's out there. And all I've ever heard is I've heard about it. But as a pastor, and like, I think your mom, she said, is it the pastor? I said, no, it's Jim. And that's a very intentional choice, because when people get that title of pastor, every time they're called pastor, it just kind of bugs the ego up. And I started noticing that. Like, I made my email Pastor Jim, and I started signing things Pastor, and then people would say, call me Pastor, and I just felt myself getting elevated, like in my ego. And I said, no, like, the Buddhists have this expression that, not all Buddhists, but they say, if you see Buddha, kill Buddha. Because it's a specific sect of Buddhism where the objective is to become Buddha. But if you think you've become Buddha, you still have too much ego to be Buddha.
Right.
Right? And so it was like, basically, it's just kill your ego. Like, if you see your ego getting inflated, kill whatever's inflating your ego. And, so for me, that's why I'm Jim. You know what I mean? Because around that 2012, 2013, as I was coming into it, I saw the temptation to move into more control and how it's easy to do, and there's such a fertile ground for people who just want to be controlled. You know what I mean? Because they are where you were. And it's not necessarily that they want to be, it's just they don't know how not to be.
Right.
And, so that's why it's important for your story to get out there, and it's also for us to begin to change the narrative about who God is and what God expects from us. And because the reality for me is, what all God expects from me is to be me.
Can I jump in again?
Your show. I'm just talking until you start talking.
Thank you. I have noticed this. This is such a safe place. Like, just being in here, because what you're talking about, I would be lying if I say I also didn't participate in the legalism. I wanted to be the best daughter in the kingdom family. I wanted to be my spiritual parents' favorite kid. I wanted to be, perfect and good, and I wanted them to talk about me to the apostle. And I wanted the brother and sister churches to know my name. And I was on the worship team, so I wanted to, get more whatever. And I was a youth leader, and I was a children, like that competition, I absolutely was a part of it. Because it was fulfilling me. Well, if I do this, then I'm a better Christian. And if I do that, then I'm a better this. And I'm loved. Are you loved? And it was that competition, and I absolutely participated in it because I thought that's how you receive love. And so when things got taken away from me as a form of punishment when I got married, it really, started to shake me. I was getting stripped down. You can't be on the worship team anymore because your heart's not in a pure place. We're going to take you out of teaching the youth because we don't want whatever's going on in your personal life to be projected out. And I started getting things taken away from me as this form of punishment, and I realized I don't know who I am. I'm trying to compete to get your love, and I can't get it. And now you're taking all these things away from me, which is just further proving that I'm bad and depraved and I'll never be good enough. And so I absolutely participated in that. And then after 2 years of all those things being taken away, I could start to see that was what was happening in them. And that's where I became really compassionate. Just as I was trying to compete for their love, they're trying to compete for our love and the apostles' loves and the brothers' love, and I could see that in them, and that's where I became really compassionate and understanding, whoa, the church world really has this idea that you are not worthy of love unless you're XYZ volunteer teacher, X blah, blah, blah. And it is truly, I feel like, a pandemic of what's going on in the church. And so this has been such a safe place. Nobody's competing for the worship team, or nobody's, right, exactly. Nobody's I'm the best greeter. No, I'm the best greeter. Jim won't love me if I don't greet, and it's such a safe place because, you guys are very blessed. You don't know that here. And wow, that's incredible. Even just this, sitting and talking and I don't know, it's just completely, this is amazing. Yeah.
So that's all I got. If you guys have any questions or responses or comments, or if you have anything else you want to share, or
I think I talked.
Josh has definitely never called me that.
That's how he introduced himself to me. I'm offended now. Katylyn. Yes. Thank you. Hi, Dan. Good. How are you? Thank you. Glad I got through that.
That's why I asked Dan to be here.
Whoa! What a question. If I had a chance to address my accusers and abusers with Jesus with his arm around me. Well, I kind of did it with my ex-husband recently. It's because and I don't know if I'm wrong for this, but he came to me admitting his fault. He took accountability and he took ownership. Yes, and it wasn't just like a blanket. It was like he truly took accountability and ownership, and I was able to thank him for taking accountability and just release him finally. But that's because he came to me with that accountability, and it makes it different because there are people who are still making up stories about me, and for those people, if I were to say that they were right here, right now, with Jesus, what a question, Dan. Wow. With Jesus and his arm around me, I would say, the woman I am today, because I now know who God is, and I've allowed him to know me, would never have allowed for you to speak or treat me the way that you did. I'm praying for you because I see your hurt and rejection and brokenness. You have a pure heart, but what you are doing is harmful. It's harmful, and I need you to know that. But I want to forgive you, and I want to release you, and I truly would love for the Lord to have an opportunity to sit with you, because all you do is run. You stay busy to forget. You stay busy to not feel the rejection and the pain. You stay busy and you control and you micromanage because it makes you feel good, but you're so broken. And I beg of you to please sit down and let him love you. Just let him love you. Because there's so much goodness inside of you. And you deserve freedom too. I know, I need to clear that. Yeah. Thank you. Just kidding, yeah. Dan, I feel like that was super healing. Thank you. Thank you. No, I think that I struggle because part of me wants to like burn it all down, right? And I've realized that there's allowed to be conflicting parts of us through therapy. And part of me wants to just blow it all up and burn it all down and say like, you're hurting so many people. And then the other part of me is just like, but gosh, you are so hurt too. And I wish I could just force, and it bothers me too because other people can see this and they just keep letting them, and I'm like, why don't you? It's a very complex, because there is so much like, just let him love you, please. And why is nobody telling you to stop running around so that he can love you? And another part of me just wants to light it all on fire, so. It is what it is. Are you going to make me cry too?
I hope not. It's not my goal.
Do more things.
So, some of them will know that there's a lot of Christian words and Christian cliches that people say over and over and over again that really just have no meaning, right? And so sometimes it's words, like the word repent. Like, nobody even knows what that word means. And so the one, finally as I was going through these words, the last one that I came across that we have no idea what it means is forgive. Like, we have no idea what that word means. And we have no idea. People, well, just forgive them. Well, okay, how do I do that? Where's the step? Like, what's the steps to forgiveness? And so I just did some work, as pastors do, studied the word and broke it down. Like, for means ahead of time, given, right? And so when we think about, you quoted the caution, or Corinthians 13, right? Love is patient, love is kind. Love does not keep track of wrongs. Love does not hold account for wrongs done. So, like, this idea that I do something wrong, and then I have to do something to get God to forgive me of that later on.
Right.
Right? It's not true, because God never held it against me to begin with.
Right.
And so, to live lives of forgiveness is to live a life where you don't hold things against people. Because I know that when this person lashes out, and when this person hurts me, it's not actually them. It's their sin, which isn't their action. It's their wounds. And so I had to kind of rethink the cross and this idea that Jesus died on the cross to forgive me of my sins. Well, why do I need to be forgiven? Like, what did because I was born, now this guy had to die just so I can eventually die one day too? Like, it made sense. And so, and then when I started looking at, like, studying the life of Jesus, like, what did he do? He didn't walk around forgiving. He walked around healing people. And so the idea that Jesus died on the cross to heal me of my wounds instead of forgiving, because he never held it against me anyway. And so that idea of, like, how do I now not hold wrongs against people? You know what I mean? And, like, that's kind of what that exercise does. It's like, how do I just release people of these grudges that I've constructed and just truly live a life of forgiveness? Because when you hurt me, I know it wasn't you that did it.
Right.
And that's how you were talking to me, like, I know your heart. Like, I know this isn't you. And I know that your heart is pure. Like, the ability to see that in somebody that has been so traumatizing to you it's pretty incredible. I don't know if I could do that. I still hold a lot of grudges against Dan. That guy is really...
He seems like a really
he's
bad guy.
He's out there just wounding people. And,
Yeah. I think the most dangerous thing was probably a year prior to me leaving. I actually started to figure out who Jesus was. And then I started looking around and seeing, like, okay, what my husband says that he's doing in the name of God, that does not line up with Jesus. And what these people say that does not line up with Jesus. And I really just started looking at the life of Jesus, because one of the things that was constantly hammered and manipulated to be used against me was the Bible. So everything would be taken out of context, and then it was somehow used to prove that I was this, that, and the other. So I just started looking at the life of Jesus. I'm like, this is objective. You can't take this out of context and, women cover your head. You can't take this out. And so I started looking at that, and it really was, I saw his compassion and his kindness, and I saw that the people around me were not operating that way, and I was like, I don't know how to get this, but I don't want to be like them. I know I'm still here because I can't leave, I'm stuck, but I don't want to be like that. I want what I'm seeing in the life of Jesus. And granted, I'm still a teacher. I've been a teacher through all of this. And one of the other life-changing moments is in 2022, right before my ex said that he was leaving me. I had a former student who, her name is Cammie. No, I'm crying it. But
I didn't do it.
no, it's me. Her name is Cammie, and she was my first student after I had graduated, and she found the love of God for the first time in my arms. It was the most beautiful, special moment, and I became like her adopted mom, like her family truly allowed me to be a mother to her. Like her mother would call me when nobody else could get through to Cammie. And in May of 2022, Cammie was murdered in Warren. And her mother asked me to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow at her funeral, and it was packed. Oh, there were hundreds of people there. And I got to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I got to pray to close out the funeral. And her mother just honored me and said, my daughter wouldn't have known the love of God without you. My whole family wouldn't know who Jesus is without you. And when you have a mother who has just lost their daughter look you in the eye and say, my kid wouldn't have known Jesus without you, that really changes things. And I decided at that point, people, my students, they're going to know the love of God. It doesn't matter what I'm feeling. It doesn't matter if I'm angry, if I want to burn things down. There's a Cammie everywhere, and I mean that took a piece of me, you know. And so I think just to have another mom, what an honor. I knew at that point it didn't matter that people had to know that he's so good, and I'll always remember just holding Cammie in my arms. And she would call me from her trap houses, and every time she'd call, it wasn't the judgment and the condemnation. It's just like, honey, I'll come pick you up. I don't care where you are. And that's love. And that's what love does. And those people called me today and said, Katylyn, I need you. I mean, okay, what do you need? That's what love does. So, and I honor my Cammie.
Cammie in my story broke my heart. Gave me a fear of rejection for a time. Had a crush on her in 5th grade. She said no. So my Cammie's a heartbreaker.
My Cammie was too. Just in dying, so. It's a morbid joke. It was supposed to be, okay.
I got it. I'm good. That was...
I need a little humor, and she would have laughed too, so. Well, thank you for participating. Did anybody else have anything? I am just chit-chatting away, so. Okay. Yeah, I do. Absolutely. I have told people every time I tell this story, regardless, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I would not have changed a single thing because, like I said, not all of it was bad. And, yep. Thank you. Not all of it was bad. And I had this idea of what marriage and life should look like. I'm thankful I got what I thought I wanted to realize that's not actually. But I would still be chasing that right now if I never had what I thought I wanted. So the Lord gave me what I thought I wanted, and then I realized that's not it. So I wouldn't have changed a thing. Yeah, we did. We had the conversation last night. Yeah. But the rose bush on the side is so pretty.
And then we gotta pull them thorns out.
Yep.
Every rose has a thorn. I think there's a great poet that said that one time.
Yeah.
I quote Brett Michaels.
I was gonna say, every rose.
Yeah, because there's a part in there where he says, the wound heals, but the scar remains.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like we have a lot of these wounds,
Right.
right, that fester and can get infected. And so we want to heal the wound. The scar, the memories of them remain, but the painfulness, the infection of the wound is gone.
Right.
And so that's when we know we're on a path of healing. Because we have the memories of what happened to us, but they don't trigger us anymore. They're not painful anymore.
Right.
So once again, the wisdom of Brett Michaels
Huh?
never ends.
The wound is fully healed and becomes scarred. Like before the matter. And move on with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is not my mom has helped me, and I told her the other day because she's like, this was a couple weeks ago, and when you see somebody you love struggling or going through things, you're just like, just get better, like, just okay, you're not in it anymore, everything's okay. And that's where I use the analogy, like, yeah, I'm not in the bramble bush anymore, but I'm still pulling out some of those thorns. And I said, the person I was in January of 2023 versus who I am today, I'm not having PTSD episodes, I'm not being triggered by I had full-blown PTSD, and it was so difficult. And so I'm here today, I'm not having an episode, I'm not angry, I'm not judgmental, but it is still a journey, and that is okay.
So let me ask you a question. Was it a struggle for you to kind of get in the car this morning and
Yeah.
be here?
Yeah.
Because you're like texting, you're like, wait, so anybody knows, like, this isn't being live streamed, because she wanted to know how she would feel. It is being recorded, and depending on that, like I said, if there's anything she says that she wants edited out, it is out. If we get done, she says just delete the video. We're just going to delete the video. But she started texting, because we talked about all this a few weeks ago. She texted about it this morning. I'm like, I think she might be nervous, getting in the car. You know what I mean? Why?
The building of the church has represented a house of pain for me. That's how I left the building of a church. It was painful. And so I didn't know what to expect this morning. I didn't know if people would judge me. I didn't know if I wasn't prepared enough. I didn't know if I prayed enough. I didn't know. Checklist. I just went through, and then I stopped, and I was like, this is the religious red tape, and I'm going to show up who I am, and that's all I can do, because you're right here. And so that's what I did. But something about the physical structure of the church, it made me nervous for a moment. And I also, religious red tape, I'm like, I don't want to judge anyone, and I don't want to gossip, and how do you tell your story, right, without, telling what happened, but also not, gossiping, and I don't know, I was just, it's my story, right? I have to tell, right, exactly. I feel like I'm tiptoeing around, I want to tell my story, but I don't want to be me. I don't know. So I was conflicted.
As a writer, so Katylyn's a writer. She's published a book. I have it somewhere on my bookshelf. I don't know if I read it.
Somewhere.
I did buy it, though, which is what matters.
Whatever.
I remember. I don't know how long ago that was. I mean, that seemed like that was long ago.
Yeah, that was 2013.
13, yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I remember we were posting about it, so I bought a copy of it to support you.
Never read it. Great.
Maybe. I might have. I don't know. Maybe I might have browsed it, looked and seen if I showed up anywhere.
Sure.
That's one of the things I tell people, this is your story. And,
Yes.
you think about, I get to write it, I get to edit it, I get to direct it, I get to produce it, I get to cast it. And so many of us were given a story that was written for us, that was casted for us, that was directed for it, and edited for it. You know what I mean? It's no, that's not the way it works. so yeah, you don't, you're not gospel, you're telling your story.
Right.
I mean, like we have 4 gospels that are telling the story of Jesus, and all 4 of them are different.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, how could this be true? There are 4 different days that contradict. No.
Right.
That was Matthew's story of Jesus. That was John's story of Jesus. That was, it's your story.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't like Matthew was lying. It's not like you're gossiping. But yeah, we all have the freedom
Yeah.
to tell your story and tell your story in an honest way.
Right.
And yeah, like I said, I think it's beautiful. And there were a few things that, like, we had talked about beforehand. Obviously, we don't want to name any names, and we don't want to name any organizations or anything like that. That's not the right. She said I said I thought it'd be inappropriate. She said she didn't feel comfortable doing it. I also felt that it'd be inappropriate to name names and name the organizations. I just feel like that's not what we do here. But just to kind of also bring awareness that this isn't the only. There's other organizations like that here in Marine County. I know of a couple of them. So they're out there, and they're preying on young, vulnerable people who are lost and broken and just are looking for something. And they offer it to them. And like she said, I believe that movement started out with the best of intentions. It started out pure, but money and power and control corrupt.
Right.
And if we allow those things to influence us, then we are allowing ourselves to be corrupted. And so, I think a lot of these movements are pure at the start. But humanity gets involved, and the world gets involved, and they become corrupted, and then they become destructive and traumatizing and abusive.
Right.
So, anyway, anybody have anything else? Once again, I will start talking. How's Dan again?
Tread lightly, Dan.
Don't make it drag.
I know.
Well, I really, the love and description of the church would be the house.
Right. Tell the truth, even if it's ugly, especially with others, with God. I think that's been the biggest thing. Stop hiding behind the mask. You don't have to make yourself look a certain way to be the perfect Christian. We are all going through things, and we all should just have the humility to say, I love God, and I'm failing here, and I need help. That's where true community can be established. When you're authentic and I'm authentic and you're authentic, and we're not trying to one-up each other to get love, reward, X, Y, and Z. My biggest takeaway.
Well, and I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up. I promised people we'd be done by noon, and we got about 7 minutes. And I think if she starts talking more, or I start talking more, somebody has another question, we'll go over that.
He just said that I talk too much. Did you
I
hear
did
him?
not.
That's literally what he just said.
I just said, as a teacher and a pastor, we don't have a hard time filling 7 minutes.
He just said if she keeps going, he'll be here till midnight.
But anyway, I just wanted to thank you again for being here. I know, that, you know, what it means and how hard it would have been, and thank you for trusting me with this step in that process. Like I said, I know we haven't always been like super, super close,